Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Tom Curran. I am joined today by Brian Hoyer, longtime NFL quarterback, and, of course, Phil Perry. We're going to do a deep dive on the four quarterbacks the Patriots have been most linked to as their quarterback of the future. It's Jayden Daniels, it's Drake Maye, it's J.J. McCarthy, and Michael Penix. And, of course, you guys all know Brian, a 2009 Patriots acquisition. He was undrafted, but he had two stints here. And in his second stint was 2017 to 2022. Brian, welcome, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
I'm happy to have you. Phil, we look at this. We've been doing so much work on this. You and me batting it back and forth, but it's good to have some professional eyes on this, right?
Yeah, thank God we have a big brain here when it comes to the quarterback position. What are you looking for, Brian, when it comes to college players making their way to the pro game? Are there one or two things that you look for first and foremost in terms of being able to try to project how well they'll be at the next level?
Yeah, I think for me, being new to this, the first thing I'm going to look at is physical ability. I think first and foremost, all four of these guys are capable of that. But that's what you're going to look at. What jumps out? Can they make big throws? How athletic are they? How big are they? Can they withstand hits? So a lot to dive into, and I think we'll have some good time here, going over this stuff.
This is going to be fantastic because all of these guys are varied in skills. All right, with no further ado then, let's get after the guy that we think the Patriots are most likely to wind up with at number 3. It's University of North Carolina quarterback Drake Maye. We got 5 throws lined up here. And Phil, Drake Maye, big, 6'3", 6'4", fits that prototypical mold. What do you think, Brian, about his general overall build?
Yeah, I think there's going to be obviously comparisons to big athletic guys like a Josh Allen, big, tall, strong, can run, athletic, big arm. And so having watched him a little bit to prepare for this, you see some comparisons to that.
All right, here's the first throw. Phil, take us through this.
Yeah, man, he just has been so effective with the deep ball, Brian. So these throws that go over 20 yards in the air, he's been arguably the best in the country the last 2 years. And so you're seeing him float it right down the sideline there. Is there anything that stands out to you in terms of the footwork, Brian, before, we don't want to start critiquing these guys right off the top, but that has been the big critique when it comes to this guy's game is, boy, you got to clean up that footwork. Is that a huge issue for you going from the college level to the pro level? Is that something that can be fixed if he comes to the Patriots?
I actually think that's the easiest thing to be fixed. I know coming in, I learned so much from, watching Tom and his footwork, obviously Coach O'Brien, Bill O'Brien, his coaching. The footwork to me would be the least of the concern. If we want to rewind this back to the beginning and pause it right there, the first thing that stands out to me is his recognition of coverage. We call this blitz zero. There's 5 DBs lined up across. It's an empty formation. There's only 5 linemen to block. They're blitzing 6 guys. So to me, what's even more impressive than this throw, which it's not hard to tell, but he sees the blitz and he knows exactly where the weak point in the protection is. He knows a guy's going to come free from the left. He knows what matchups he has. This is man coverage. And so he you talk about footwork. I actually think this is good footwork. He drifts a little bit to the right where the protection's a little more firm. Lofts a great pass. We call this an inside slot fade. Right over the guy's shoulder. I mean, you couldn't really ask for a better play from the quarterback right here.
So it's funny, Tom, I look at this play and I say, okay, I could see people criticizing his feet because I'm not really sure why he's drifting to the side like that before he makes the throw, but Brian's point is a good one. We're watching it here. He knows where the free runner is, and he's getting a step or two away from that guy so that he has an extra beat to throw the football. I like that. As somebody who likes Drake Maye, I've called him the best quarterback prospect in this draft, believe it or not, Brian. Not that anybody cares, but maybe that's one of the reasons why.
All right, let's go on to the next play then with Drake Maye. And this is another outstanding throw. Brian, take us through this one. Again, you said it was blitz zero.
Yeah, so the last one was blitz zero. This one was what we would call blitz 11 or blitz 1. This time they're going to keep a safety in the middle of the field. You see number 9 down here in the box. So he knows that he's got to control this guy if he's going to throw it down the sideline. And when we let it run here, you'll see he gives a little token fake, puts his eyes on the safety, knows where he is. And that really prevents the safety from getting in and making this play. It's a great throw, hits the guy in stride. But that little movement right there, he'll have to do it a little bit longer at the next level because the safeties are going to be that much better. But it shows me that he knows that that guy he's responsible for. Bill, when he was coaching us, he would always tell us, quarterbacks, you're responsible for the free safety. Drake obviously knows that a little bit to the extent he gives a little token fake, looks at him, and then we kind of call this a peek at the free safety and a no-look throw to the guy up the sideline.
This was thrown from the 50, travels down to the 10, so it's a 40-yard flick. What I like about this is he keeps it on the planet, and we saw that to be a problem so frequently for Mac, really, in the last couple of years, was balls that floated and went off the grid. And I like this throw in terms of the placement that he keeps him on the field.
Yeah, Tom, I think he has had that issue too, right? There will be moments. I can remember one specifically from when North Carolina played UVA, and it's his second or third throw of the game, and he tries to hit someone 40, 50 yards down the right sideline, and that thing lands 15 feet out of bounds. I mean, it's not playable. And so he has those moments, but I think by and large, he's shown enough down the field accuracy that it has to give you hope as a football fan. If he ends up with your team at 21 years old, he's only going to get better with some of the finer points of the game. But what Brian's saying is we can already see him in 2 plays sort of thinking his way through the game and then being able to execute, which I think you have to like.
Why does that happen? The throwing it off platform. I thought as the head drops back and your arm drops.
It's not so much, to me, it's never really the fundamentals. It's more the guy's covered. And so as you go to throw it, you're like, I really probably shouldn't be throwing this, you know? And so here, like, I would consider this receiver wide open in the NFL. In college,
Would you say wide ass open on that?
I wouldn't say that, but, you know, this right here, I think, you know, it's hard to tell from this angle. It'd be better if we saw it from the behind, not that we can get that. But when you see, there's a phrase, if he's even, he's leaving. This guy's already past the DB. This is a relatively easy throw. When you get to the next level, a go ball that you complete, I mean, sometimes they're even, and you're throwing them open. Right here, if we let it roll, you actually see the receivers open. So it's a relatively easy throw for the quarterback. It's just make sure that you keep them in stride. And I think sometimes when you see those balls that all of us have thrown, you see the quarterbacks throw it out of bounds, and you're probably thinking, what are they doing? It's more of the fact where the guy really wasn't open, but you kind of predetermined and you were going to throw it to him anyways.
All right. It's almost a throwaway.
It is. It's like you see the receiver and you're like, I'm already committed to throw this, and there's really not, which, you know, now you see a lot of guys like Joe Burrow does a great job of, when it's that scenario, he has these big receivers, he just kind of floats it out there. We call it a Burrow ball. It's not so much the back shoulder, it's kind of just loft it up and let my guy go get the ball. So it's kind of a newer, you know, idea, I would say. So you always say you want to let the receiver touch the ball, and Joe Burrow does a great job of it.
And that's with a cadre of receivers who's so friggin' good.
Right.
And you're not going to always have that level. And we're going to see that with all these quarterbacks between Maye, especially Penix and Daniels, but to a lesser extent, McCarthy's cheat code is his protection. But all these guys are afforded things that they will not be afforded. This is a throw 'em open play, Brian. You like this one. You commented on it. It's against Miami.
Yeah, Tom, he's been one of the best in the country at throwing to the middle of the field. So those first 2 throws we watched, he's working the boundary and he's making some accurate throws down the sideline. But here, you're really seeing that anticipation, right, Brian? That's one of the things that he's been lauded for when I've spoken to coaches, is that the way he attacks the middle of the field. A lot of these offenses now, you know, the more spread out things get, a lot of it's bubble screens to the sideline, shots down the field, down the boundary. This is a guy who's throwing it into what looks like, from my vantage point, a relatively tight window in the middle of the field, which I think pro teams really like.
Yeah, I mean, now we're talking about, okay, so we saw one, the first play was blitz 0, nobody back there. The second play we call cover 1, there's a free safety. Here, hard to tell, but it definitely looks like it's a middle field open shell. And so he knows that, and he takes a 1, 2, 3 hitches and throws this guy into what we call a bender. He's bending him in to try to get him on the hash, which, you know, the hash is a little wider in college. The NFL, it's going to narrow down. These safeties are going to be able to jump on that. But, you know, that's not Drake's fault. He's taken a great drop with a guy in his face and throwing a guy on a seam bender, you know, right for a touchdown, which, like you said, you don't want to see a guy throw a bunch of bubble screens. And these are the types of throws you want to be able to see. A guy that you potentially take 3rd overall, you want to be able to see him make these throws.
Do me a favor, if you could, folks. Could you freeze it just as he is about to release the ball to see the heat that is about to get to him? Boom. All right, so they ran, obviously, a stunt, and he has pressure in his face. What do you think there about his toughness? You can let it roll so we're not looking at somebody squinting. But what are you seeing there with the presence?
I mean, what I see here is he has no idea that that's happening, and that's to me, he shouldn't. There's not a blitz. He should think it's solid protection, and he's really taking a quick drop and getting the ball out. And so, to me, you feel this more as a quarterback than you see it, but it doesn't seem to affect him at all. And if anything, he's throwing it with such ease that even if this guy's hitting him, I think he still completes this pass.
Phil, this is a play you're going to like coming up next. This is showing the athleticism, and it's, for a change, showing him moving and throwing to his left. It's a sprint out. He doesn't throw a lot to his left, but this is a sprint out left.
This is what you're talking about when we're talking about that bundle of traits that Brian mentioned off the top in terms of what he's looking for from these college guys. Are you big? Do you have a big arm? Can you move around a little bit? It's not going to break the record for velocity in the ACC, but on the move to your left, Brian, how difficult is that as a right-handed quarterback, and what is this particular play telling you about his athleticism?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, I think, especially quarterbacks this day and age, they do a lot of getting coached of being how to throw on the run. And I think, I don't know Alex Van Pelt personally, but just knowing his history, West Coast guy, you're going to ask the quarterback to do a lot of boots, and having played for Kyle Shanahan and done a lot of these throws, it's something that you want your quarterback to be comfortable with, because if you only do it when you boot right, they kind of sniff that out. And a lot of times some of the best plays I ever had in that system was booting out back to my left. And a lot of times, this is a tough throw, but that opens up a lot of easy throws. So to be able to do this is obviously a plus.
Looks like a shortstop there, Tom. He was a three-sport athlete in high school. He is, unlike some other college prospects, he hasn't been just focused on football from the time he was able to hold a football. And I think that's something that can allow you to project, okay, this guy, he is only 21 years old. He hasn't only been focused on football his whole life. Yep. You can see that there is a ceiling there that he has yet to reach.
Yeah, and I love that. I think for me, having been, I played 3 sports until my sophomore year, then really narrowed down to football and baseball. But throwing, especially a quarterback, if you are someone who, like you said, played shortstop or pitch, if you're throwing different angles, different things, it kind of teaches you, how to throw off balance, how to throw on the run, things like that. I always used to give Tom crap because he was a catcher, so everything was like this.
From his ear.
Yeah, and so, I played shortstop, I played center field, I pitched, and I learned how to throw, albeit it was baseball, but it trained my arm to throw from different angles. And for me, that was always something. And now you look at the way that the quarterback position is played. You look at Aaron Rodgers, you look at Mahomes, you look at Josh Allen, you look at these guys who are throwing from all these different angles. That's something that you don't really want to base your game around, but if you are able to do it, it's just another tool in your tool belt to be able to play with.
You talk about athleticism, you talk about the ability to use competitiveness in other sports. He is the brother of Luke Maye, who was a terrific basketball player at the University of North Carolina. His dad played quarterback at North Carolina. There's 4 brothers. They're all competitive. We're going to highlight a run here to show you some of the quickness, toughness, and decisiveness. I really like this because he did spend time evaluating what was downfield. But when he decided I'm going to run, he's like, I'm out of here. I am decisive.
And one of the things that you don't see here that you do see on some of his other runs, and maybe it gets back to that baseball background, he has been pretty effective at sliding, Brian, which not all of these guys that we're going to talk about today have been, and it's just going to allow you to protect yourself. We know he's got maybe that quote-unquote body armor just by being a bigger dude, but if you can get down and protect yourself so you're not taking big shots from linebackers, that's going to help him stay on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't the fleetest of foot when I played, but, this is, like Tom said, he's not just taking off to scramble. You see him shift. His eyes are up, he's looking, okay, I'm going to take off. And I guess the thing that I'm looking at, if you want to try to compare him to Josh Allen, which, I don't know if it's necessarily fair, but Josh is going to run over a guy, Josh is going to juke. This is a solid run, but I don't know how much more he's going to give you in the run game, but I think it's a solid play. He checks his reads and then he takes off. So, it's definitely a positive. He's not as big and fast and strong in the run as a guy like Josh Allen. If for those people who are going to compare him to him.
All right, time to shoot me straight then. Drake Maye at number 3. I think people look at the upside. Phil certainly does, and says that's a player worth betting on, putting your chips on. He's young. He's going to improve. He fits the suit. Brian, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, is he the 3rd best quarterback? I really do think so. Is he worth the 3rd pick? I don't know that. I'm glad that I don't have to have that decision. But he's talented. He's big. He's strong. He's been successful. If you're going to draft a quarterback, then if you're hell bent on drafting a quarterback with the 3rd pick, I think he's probably the one that you take because of the upside that's there.
Phil, do you like the situation for him here? I mean, you're going to sit him for a portion of time to clean up the footwork. You don't have things around him. You're going to kind of pee away 1 year of his rookie contract in some ways, and he's still not going to be surrounded by some of the players that you need.
Yeah, but that's okay to me, as long as you feel as though he's the right guy, and as long as you feel as though there is some significant improvement to be had for him because of his age, because of his relative football experience, because of, I think, something that I've been told multiple times by NFL people is that the coaching that he got and the scheme that he was in this past year was different from 2 years ago. Go back and watch that tape from 2022. You're going to see a guy who, even at 20 years old, looks a little bit more polished in a lot of ways than the guy you saw this year. So there's a balance that teams are going to have to wrestle with as they evaluate him. But I think there's enough upside there to be willing to bet on him at 3 overall. And even if you have to sit him for a year, you have Jacoby Brissett, guy that he could learn from, a guy who can take the reins and be a legitimate starter for a full season if necessary.
Real quick, we need to do a high comp and a low comp. We're going to keep this tight because we don't want to go on too long. We want to get to the other quarterbacks. But I'm going to go simply a high comp, and that's going to be a faster, less powerful armed, smidgen smaller Drew Bledsoe. And a lot of that has to do with the physical toughness, the competitiveness, the resiliency, and the poise. I think those are selling points for him. So I'm a Drew Bledsoe on the high comp for him.
Okay, I guess for me, I'll go, and I have no problem saying this. People give me crap about it, but my favorite quarterback to watch in the NFL right now is Josh Allen, and I'm going to say he's a poor man's Josh Allen is probably the high comp. That's what you're going to hope that you get, and I think Phil made a great point. If he comes here, he comes into a situation where you have a great veteran quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. You don't have to put him on the field, hopefully, for the whole year. And I think if you look at it from that standpoint, hey, we're going to draft him 3rd overall. We're going to invest great coaching, invest time with him, and give him some time. I think that's probably best case scenario. So for me, I said, he's not going to run as well as Josh Allen, and he's not as big and as strong, but there's definitely some comparisons, and if he has time to develop, I think that would be best case scenario.
You also think Josh Allen is an alien?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I said, when I sit down to watch football with my son, I go, this is who I want you to play like. Don't play like me. Don't play like Uncle Tom. Don't play like Jacoby. This is who I want you to be, because I really believe when you watch, even in my 15 years, the development of the quarterback position, that's where it's going. Big, strong guys who can throw, who, you prefer to really stay in the pocket, but when they take off, I mean, Josh Allen's a threat. And so a few years back, I actually asked him, to sign a jersey for my son, so it's hanging in my son's room, and that's who I tell him to model himself after.
That's awesome. I would go high comp. I'll go Justin Herbert. He's not as tall as Herbert, but I think his arm's a little less than Allen. He's not quite as fast as Allen. I think that maybe puts him in a little bit closer ballpark to Herbert. The low end comp, I'll just tell you, there's an offensive coordinator who compared Drake Maye to another former UNC quarterback, Mitch Trubisky, earlier this offseason. That would obviously be the low end. That's not what Patriots fans are going to want in terms of production,
right?
Clearly.
And Mitch was a number
2.
Two. Okay, even better. Hey, let's dive into now Jayden Daniels, Heisman Trophy winner from LSU. Phil, give us a skinny on what his career.
Yeah, spent the first 3 years of his career at Arizona State, ends up transferring to LSU, spends 2 years there, has an okay year in 2022, might have been, had he remained at that level, like a 4th or maybe even a 3rd round pick. And then this year, he's an explosive play walking. 90 plays of 20 yards or more. That's through the air and on the ground. He is a dynamic threat, both with his arm and his legs. Heisman Trophy winner.
We're not doing Caleb Williams because he's going to be off the board to Chicago. We are doing Jayden Daniels. You say this is a layup. Your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is probably a crazy take. And having done, some of this work to prepare for this, I actually think he's the best quarterback in the draft. And listen to Phil talk. Does that sound similar to another LSU guy that came a few years ago?
Joe.
Transfer, kind of the junior year, okay, maybe a mid-round pick. Senior year blows up, Heisman Trophy. And when I watch Jayden Daniels, I see some comparisons to Joe Burrow.
Let's watch Jayden Daniels right now. We're going to start it off with just a laser between the hashes against Auburn. This shows you his arm strength.
Some good time in the pocket. Now, one of the things that we're going to see with all these clips, I'm sure, he has a really good offensive line. He has 2 tackles that might get taken the first 2 rounds next year, and then he has 2 receivers who are going to be drafted in the 1st round, in all likelihood, Malik Neighbors for sure, in this year's draft. So it's a great offensive environment. Brian, you would have loved to play for LSU in 2023. So he has some time here, but we're seeing some anticipation that NFL teams will love.
Yeah, and I think here we talk about coverage. We would call this like 4 push, cover 4, and because they're in a 3-by-1, the backside safety's pushing. So you see him check left. I think he probably feels more than he sees everybody push. And a lot of times the guy who becomes the most open in this coverage is your backside X receiver, which is great to see him get back. And this is where I say, like, you think you're going to turn on the film and see this guy who's scrambling, running around. This is pure drop back pass. And I think that's, the more I've watched him, that's what I really like. Him reset, find the guy who's open and hit him in stride.
Yeah, his feet go with him from the left
looks like Joe Burrow to me with his footwork. And I don't know if it's the same quarterback coach, same coordinator. I'm not sure. But there's a lot of similarities in their stance, their drop, their throws.
Last thing I'll say, too, on the technique, his head is totally stationary when he throws. More Jayden Daniels. We showed you short-range arm strength. Here's some long-range arm strength. Phil?
I mean, down the field accuracy has to be one of his best traits. It's silly. And again, he is throwing to a star-studded cast, but between his speed and the ability to do this deep down the field, hitting guys in stride for explosive plays, it's easy to envision him in an NFL offense. And I'll just tell you, just to reaffirm something that Brian just told us, I've had NFL coaches tell me, I'm not sure why the Bears are so dead set on taking Caleb Williams #1 overall, because if it was my pick, this is them talking, it would be this guy, Jayden Daniels.
Yeah, I think, here, this is an NFL concept. I've run this pretty much on every team that I've ever been on. And you talk about protection, I know they're great players, but this is Alabama. And this is a protection where we ran this on multiple teams. They're getting help with the tight end. They're giving a play fake. And it's what we would call a cross and a post. And what you do as a quarterback is you read the middle of the field. And if that safety takes the cross, then you throw the post, you throw them open, similar to the one that I hit against the Patriots last year. When the safety dives, you're letting it go to a spot, and you can see him. I see his head right now. He's looking for the free safety. Let it roll, and you're going to see the safety go with the crosser right there, and that means the post is open, which obviously this is a first-round receiver too, which helps.
This is one of those where you get the corner with the palms to the sky saying to his safety, what happened, man? You're making me look bad out here.
Right.
But he's taking advantage of it, which is why he's going to go, I think, #2 overall.
All right. This is another downfield throw coming up, deep right sideline. Again, I wanted to use as much Alabama as I could because he chewed up some other defenses. And this, boom, another one to one of his top-tier guys. Wow. This led him a little bit out of bounds, but you mentioned, Brian, when we talked about Drake Maye, sometimes it's not that bad to lead somebody out of bounds because with good coverage, that's the only place you got to go.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of a throw that either my guy gets it or nobody else does. You see him, we talked about Drake Maye holding the safety. You see him peak for a second, but he kind of realizes this guy's so far out of position, he kind of backpedals to the left first, that now he just focuses on a receiver and it just gives the best ball that he can give.
That is trust right there, isn't it, Brian? I mean, he lets that thing go, and Neighbors doesn't even look up for the ball for like another 15 yards, it feels like.
Yeah.
And so it's trust on both ends. Hey, I know this guy's a great player. He's going to go get it. I know I'm going to be able to put it on a dime for him to reel it in.
I want you to do me a favor, if you could, fellas. Just stop it just as he's about to release the ball. Boom. You got a guy who's about to let it go. Really, Neighbors isn't going to turn around for another second, 2 seconds, and the ball's going to be on the spot if you could let it go.
So that's repping it, right, Brian? And just having faith and trust in a great player. And again, this is a guy who he has sort of a binary sort of style, Brian, meaning he's either throwing from the pocket or he's taking off to run. Right. He doesn't do a lot of the scramble around, buy himself time, throw off platform stuff. But he's such a great athlete. If he's not throwing from the pocket, it's not necessarily a bad decision to take off and scramble.
Let me set it to the next one. This is another touchdown pass. He's got a lot of them. This is to the back of the end zone. Again, a flick, Brian. And this is, just placement, high point, all that.
So we mentioned before kind of like the Burrow throw right here. It's a double move. The guy has him by a little bit, but really what he's doing is he's giving his receiver a chance to get the ball. I mean, this is knowing your matchup and just saying, I'm going to let my receiver have a chance at catching the ball. And like we said, it's a far side throw, and, he does it with ease.
What do you think of it? I just want to ask, how hard is the adjustment when you go from top-tier players, as you did with New England? You were in practice every day with, the Amendolas, the Edelmans, the Mosses, the Gronkowskis. He's going to go from Neighbors and Brian Thomas to guys who might have been behind them on the depth chart.
Yeah, I mean, and not only look, everybody in the NFL is good, but the thing is, the other side's just as good. So, you may look at this receiver and say, oh, he's not that good. Well, it's not necessarily that. It's the guys he's going against. So, if you try to throw this ball on Steph Gilmore, it's broken up. Mm-hmm. That's just the fact of the matter. And so what it comes down in the NFL is the matchups. When you get, your better receiver on a guy that he's better at, you're going to give him a chance to go catch the ball. And if you can accumulate more of those guys, obviously any quarterback would love that.
Phil, let's take a look at this last play, and this is the concern about Jayden Daniels. He runs, and sometimes he gets walloped. Check this out, big hit at the end, Phil.
He sure does. And listen, look at all that extra yardage he's chewing up by not sliding after picking up the first down. But you have to balance that. You have to stay on the field if you're going to be the number 2 overall pick in the face of a franchise. It's a catch-22, right, Brian? Because this is part of what makes him so dangerous. This is what is going to make him such a difficult person to prepare for NFL defenses starting next year. But if he doesn't learn to get down and figure out when the battle is ended, as Tom Brady used to put it, it might not be all that lengthy a season for him.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I know we'll get to the comps later, but when you see him run, his running comp is a lot like Lamar. But Lamar last year did a great job of protecting himself. And the reality is, I don't know what Jayden Daniels weighs, but I promise you the guys at the next level are going to hit a lot harder than this. And this, we're looking at this hit like it's a big hit. It's hard enough when you're a quarterback. You're going to get hit in the pocket. So you have to try to figure out, if you're going to be a running quarterback, how to minimize those hits downfield.
It'll be fascinating when we look at Michael Penix in just a minute, too, to see the approach being different. High comp, low comp from both of you guys on Jayden Daniels.
I'll go first this time. I'll just go with Lamar.
Yeah.
He's really difficult to find a true comp for, but I think because you're not going to be able to play a lot of man-to-man against him in the NFL because he is so damn fast, the ability to win with his arm as well, which we know Lamar can do, winning 2 MVPs. I'll go with him as my high-end comp. And then the low-end comp for me, this is one that was brought to me by a coach, Brian. I'd love to hear what you think about it, is Justin Fields. And a skinnier version, obviously, of Justin Fields, because he does have a tendency to, if he feels pressure, bring his eyes down and take off. And that's great at the college level because he can rip off a 60-yard touchdown at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
It's just a question of, can you do that consistently at the next level?
Yeah, I think for my high comp, I mentioned, like, in running terms, maybe he's not as fast as Lamar or as sturdy, but when he takes off, he's dangerous in running, and I would say that. But I mentioned it before, maybe it's the LSU jersey, but it's Burrow. I think he has the ability to be a drop-back passer. I actually don't see any comparison to Justin Fields because, to me, Justin Fields can't drop back and pass the way that Jayden Daniels does. I just don't see it. I think he has a calmness to him. He's played a lot of football. You mentioned he played a lot of games at Arizona State, played 2 years at LSU. To me, like I said, he's been my favorite guy watching to prepare for. And low comp, I mean, there's not much low to look to and or who to compare. I guess the low comp would be Justin Fields if he gets to the NFL and all of a sudden the rush is coming different from LSU and he puts his head down and he's trying to run all the time.
That's why it's hard with a low comp with him, because he is so uniquely fast. You can only compare him to other similarly fast quarterbacks, which would be Lamar, which would be Michael Vick, and then you're kind of out of business. We're not out of business. Guys, tremendous insight on Jayden Daniels. All right, we're plowing forward. Now we're going to get to, believe it or not, my favorite guy. Phil's a Drake Maye guy. Brian is a Jayden Daniels guy. I actually embrace the upside of J.J. McCarthy. Phil, I don't need you deriding my guy, but explain to me the skinny on him.
I would never deride him. I would tell you this. This guy's a winner. He won at the high school level, he won at the prep level, and now he's won a national championship at Michigan. He is an athlete. He was one of the better testers we've seen in terms of his agility timing at the combine this year, and I think that shows up on tape with some of the movement that you see when he's on the field. Is thought to have a strong arm, not the strongest arm in the class, but strong enough. Brian, what do you think of him?
Yeah, I think all the things you mentioned are great traits. You can't take anything away from J.J. McCarthy because he plays on a great team. He has a great offensive line. That's nothing. That's not his fault. If anything, it's to his benefit. So I like the fact that he's a winner, like you mentioned before. Other than the fact that he's a Wolverine, being a Spartan, I don't love that. But, he's a fun guy to watch. And watching the film to prepare for this, like, he makes some great plays, and he's really athletic.
It's funny. Each of these guys that we have done and will do, Drake Maye plays in a worse conference than McCarthy or Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels is throwing to 2 first-round receivers. J.J. McCarthy, well, let's run him right now. You're going to see this guy. He is protected like Fort Flippin' Knox. But here's the first throw for J.J. A laser. This is a short throw, guys, but I love this because this shows the arm strength.
Yeah, and I think, like, we talk about fundamentals, but to me, what this shows here is he knows what the blitz is, he knows what the coverage is. And so much to me about, you get into the fundamentals talk, you get into, completion percentage, all those things. A lot of the times, it's more about knowing where to go with the football than how you deliver it. So here, he sees the guy blitz, he's replacing him with a guy who's probably got some kind of option route, and he sees the motion, and they're kind of pointing. He knows this guy's out of place a little bit. All you're waiting is for that linebacker to blitz to know the middle's wide open.
All right.
One of the things that teams, Tom, have said to me about J.J. McCarthy is that this guy knows ball. And so even though they didn't ask him to throw it a ton at Michigan because they had such a great team, he's been great on the board. He's interviewed really well. Plays like this one are examples of that he knows what he's looking at.
Good deal. This is another throw. And, Brian, the first time you looked at this one, you said, look. This is a leading throw. Take us through this one, B.
Yeah. So right here, you're going to see a hard play action fake. My thing is, he's locked into his receiver, which is a tremendous throw. I don't really know if he knows number 7's back here and trying to look this up. So luck or, maybe that's my whole thing is you don't know what he's coached to look at. So this is kind of what we would call a formation indicator. I'm guessing the corners are over. He's thinking it's man coverage. The problem is when the tight end blocks, the guy who's covering him, number 7, he's freeing up. So, I've been part of plays like this where you kind of got to peek and make sure that the guy who's covering the tight end either hugs up. Right here, it's a tremendous throw. It's a great play action fake to get everybody, the linebackers, to kind of pull up. But, to me, does he know number 7's back there? I don't know that.
Look at this is the national championship game, Phil. And just freeze it right before you watch. Boom. You can't even see the Washington Huskies because of the power and size of the Michigan offensive line.
It's nice to get that 7-man protection, too, right, Brian?
Look at the relaxed throw. Look at his relaxed composure after the throw. It's hard to grade, right, Phil?
Well, and that's what I want to ask Brian, what he thinks of just his mechanics, because one of the things that gets brought up with him is he has a pretty wide base, and it does look like when he's trying to drive the ball, and I'm not saying this is necessarily one of those throws, but he gets his whole body into it. And is he going to be able to do that consistently at the next level? What do you see from him mechanically, Brian?
Well, we talked about, Drake Maye with footwork and things like that before. I think the thing that I remember learning really quick is in the NFL, you have to learn how to throw from a small space. And I had the fortunate circumstance to sit there and watch Tom throw, and times where he would barely even move his feet and flick the ball and throw an 18-yard comeback. And I remember thinking, man, how does he do that? But the more that I worked at it, the more I learned from him. I realized, I have the arm strength to do that. You just have to be able to figure out how you're going to basically keep yourself, right here, clean pocket, go ahead and step into it. Sometimes you have to make these throws without being able, and it's more about the rotation than it is the stride length and the base. So, right here, this is a dime. He's throwing a great ball, but as we mentioned before, great protection. And you can't really, that's not his fault that he has great protection.
Right. Check this out. Now, you guys are going to be surprised at the comp I hit you with at the end, but you might realize why I'm going to say it. This is almost a 60-yard throw. Watch, he's at his 45. Now he's at his 40. He steps up. He throws it to the end zone. That's almost 60 yards. It never gets over 30 feet in the air. His arm is stupid strong.
and one thing that again, I'm not trying to deride your guy, Tom.
Yep.
I will just bring up, there is a thought among personnel people that I've spoken to about some of these quarterbacks is that McCarthy's sort of a one-speed thrower, Brian. What does that mean to you, and do you see that from McCarthy? Because this is a great ball.
Yep.
On some of these deeper throws, you will see him occasionally just airmail somebody who is wide open down the sideline because he doesn't necessarily put the same kind of loft on it that some of these other guys do.
Yeah, this is a ball, to me, if I was going to put myself in this position and throw the perfect ball, I'd probably throw it with more air and throw it more across the field. He's really driving this, which, like you said, showcases his arm strength. And I think when you really talk about quarterbacks in the NFL, everybody's going to be able to throw it 60 yards in the NFL. I think that's probably the gold standard. 60-yard pass. To me, he actually makes it harder on himself throwing the ball the way, if he just lofts it out there probably to the numbers with a little more air, lets his guy run underneath it. But he clearly has a strong enough arm to do it because he's even kind of hitching up to his left and then throwing it across his body.
It's crazy. Well, we actually did find, folks, a play on which there was pressure. This is Georgia, outstanding team in 2022, and they get some heat on him. What do you think, Brian?
Yeah, he hangs in there. It's a great throw under pressure. It doesn't look like he My guess here is the offensive line screwed up, so he feels
Seemingly.
pretty comfortable. You can definitely see
Double team.
65's looking back like, oh, I should be helping back, and then the left guard, I'm sure, would take this guy. So as a quarterback, there's things that you're taught, like on this protection, I'm good. And so when you drop back, especially on a timing throw like this, like there's not a worry in your mind. I'm going to take a 3-step drop and throw this 9 to 12-yard out route. There's other ones we've watched before where like Drake May knows he's getting pressure and he's reacting. Here, to me, JJ's like, I'm good. I'm going to take a 3-step drop. There's no one blitzing that shouldn't be picked up. And, could he leave it a little further outside? Sure. But it's, to me, he knows the coverage. He knows that the out is open, and he takes the drop back and lets it rip. It doesn't flinch at all.
I want to give him credit here, Tom. Number one, he is 21 years old, so like he's going to develop with anything that we see as any sort of detriment to his game. But on a play like this one, I think it shows, and I don't know what down this is, but the fact that he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks on third down. They didn't ask him, again, to do a ton on third down necessarily relative to some of these other guys. But there are some metrics out there that would suggest he was the most efficient of all the quarterbacks we're going to talk about today, Caleb Williams included, on third down, and had the lowest interception rate on third down of all these guys. So he has plenty of tools when the money's on the table.
Here's the athleticism I wanted to discuss. And this, to me, is why when I give you my high comp later on, you guys might be able to say, wow, maybe.
I can't wait for this comp now. On the edge of my seat here. Look at this.
This is, again, it's TCU, but this is a Fiesta Bowl, I believe, Phil. This is a college football playoff game. Show some ingenuity. Brian, is this a guy running around with his like a chicken with his head cut off that won't be able to get away with this at the next level? Or did this translate? He actually looks like Jim McMahon right now.
I can see that. Maybe number 9's throwing you off.
Yeah.
No, I mean, look, the reality is if we go back to the beginning of this place, there's clearly someone left on block. So you got to do something. Does he do this against, a Matt Judon? I mean, maybe he's playing on the same team as Judon or a Myles Garrett. I mean, this is where Bill would always tell us, do not run out of the back of the pocket. Now, Tom and I were very statue-type quarterbacks, but the back of the pocket can be scary when you have freaks like Myles Garrett and guys like that coming after you. But it does show his athleticism where he's basically outrunning the whole team here. And, it's good. It's a good tool to have. The other thing is I'm not really familiar with the size of him, but just like everybody else we talked about, unless you're a Josh Allen, a Cam Newton, you don't want to be getting hit by these guys.
Phil, measurables.
He's about 6'3", and he weighed in at 219, which surprised some people at the Combine. I think he played closer to about 200 pounds, honestly, during Michigan's last season there. So can he keep that weight on? Again, he's 21 years old. Maybe by the time he gets to year 2 or 3, he is playing closer to that 220-pound mark. I think, Tom, this does show, we showed that the ability for some of these guys to throw almost like shortstops. He does have some of that to him. He is a really good athlete, and he's going to be able to create out of structure, so to speak.
I wanted to show this because this, to me, looks like he's so trained to throw underneath, he almost kind of misses a deep throw. Brian.
That's okay. Can't go broke taking a profit, right, Tom?
Well, yeah, but don't be so preconditioned to throw short when you might have something happening long. But again, I quarterback the clap at St. Anselm in intramural football, so we're not really going to rely on me. Let's give it to Brian here. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's getting to the open guy. There's no doubt about that. If we let this run, it's basically a clear-out concept on the left for the cross coming over from the right to the left. Maybe a little bit too much anticipation because to me, if we let it run here, this guy's going to get a little rub route from the inside receiver. Now, this is tough because the free safety, we talked about this before, he ends up cutting the guy coming across. Mm-hmm. So do you potentially have a chance at the deep one? Yeah, but it's tough for me to say that when that guy's that wide open. If you turn that down and miss the deep one, people are going to say, what was he thinking there? So to me, the safety makes a good drive on the ball, but because he has a little bit of a rub route coming to protect him, it's still a good decision. I just would like a better throw.
Phil, want to hear the high comp and low comp from me on this play?
Give it to me.
All right. To me, I look at the arm strength, I look at the foot speed, I look at the smarts, and I see high comp, the guy who was taken in 2005 in the 20s. I see Aaron Rodgers, a guy that people look at and say, well, he is a genius. Did Aaron Rodgers throw like this while he was at Cal? Not necessarily, but did he run? Yeah, he did. So to me, high comp, this player, that foot speed, that arm ability, those smarts, you could be looking at an Aaron Rodgers type. Now, low comp, Zach Wilson. So
I actually agree with you on the low comp.
Yeah, that would be a good
So let's just leave that there. I had for my high comp another guy taken in the same draft, actually taken ahead of Aaron Rodgers, and I would say Alex Smith. For a lot of the same reasons you mentioned. At the time when he was drafted number 1 overall out of Utah, by Scott McCloughan, by the way, who was worked alongside Elliott Wolf in the past and comes from that same executive tree. Good athlete, good enough arm, smart guy, doesn't turn it over like Aaron Rodgers, right? That's one of J.J. McCarthy's strengths, Brian. So I like my comp better than Tom's, but what do you think?
I agree with you more than Aaron Rodgers is a freak. When I think the one thing that people don't ever realize is how athletic Aaron is. I mean, not so much with the running and doing all those things, but his quick, twitchy muscle, build. It's amazing to, like, when I see J.J. McCarthy throw, he does have a strong arm, but the twitch is just not there. So I would actually, and it makes a lot of sense now watching him, thinking Alex Smith played for Jim Harbaugh. They kind of used JJ the same way, and he did a tremendous job. So like we said, he had a great team. His job was to make sure the team won the game, and he did that. He won the national championship, and in the same time, some built-in runs, some scrambling ability, and probably similar arm strength, I would say, too. So that's a great comparison.
there's
You hear that, Tom?
Yeah, I do.
It was a great comparison.
There's
Thank
a small room occupied by the greatest arms in NFL history, and it's Burt Jones, hats off to the former Patriots coach Bill Belichick. It's John Elway.
Yep.
It's Aaron Rodgers. And who's got the best arm you ever saw?
Michael Bishop.
Ooh, I have heard stories about Michael Bishop.
It was stupid.
I don't think we should leave Marino out of that.
Yeah, but Jimmy threw the same way. All right, we're going to wrap it up. We're going to bring in our next guy. I like Jimmy's release.
You go lightning quick.
All right, this is a player in Michael Penix, University of Washington, who will not be the 3rd overall pick. I'm going to walk out on that limb right now and bounce on it, and it will not snap. But if the Patriots do take that bag and trade down, Penix is going to go in the first half of the first round. I promise you that's going to happen. So, Phil, what's the skinny on the skinny guy?
He's played a lot of college football and had one of the most productive seasons in the country last year, helping Washington get to that national championship game. Big time down the field thrower. That offense was get it to your playmakers deep, and he trusted them, and he had 3 guys to throw to that are all going to be taken before the end of round 3. All kinds of intangibles, Brian, because he overcame 4 season-ending injuries, including 2 ACL tears to his lead leg as a lefty thrower, that right knee.
Yeah, it's a great story. I enjoyed watching him play. Great touch on the deep ball, which obviously said was a big part of their offense. He does a great job of that. It's a great story, and like you said, he's going to go in the first round at some point, clearly not at number 3. But if the Patriots decide to trade back, I think he's a good option, later on in the first round.
Here's what's unique about Michael Penix. Let's roll these. Very slim. We mentioned the injuries, and he's got a weird release. Brian?
Well, all lefties have a weird release, and we don't like watching them throw. But I actually saw someone, I don't know if it was on X or Twitter, whatever we call it now, or Instagram, and they had kind of used a mirror function, and they flipped it, and it showed him throwing right-handed, and I'm like, man, looks pretty good.
Right?
Can we freeze this just at the moment of release, if you could, as close to it as you can, just to see where the ball is. It looks low. The footwork is wacky. I mean, he's completely facing his target.
He's open.
But it's complete. Brian, how much does, Little League coach Tom Curran, who tries to tell kids to check their watch when they throw and all that other stuff, does it matter?
I think these are like the old fundamentals that used to be taught. You open your front leg, you come, and now there's so much kind of emphasis on rotation as opposed to opening and coming from over the top. And so I see him as a very fluid but old school type thrower. I think if you look at like the Aaron Rodgers, the Joe Burrows, the Mahomes, the Herberts, all of their power is coming from their back hip and keeping that front side closed. Whereas with Michael Penix, what you're seeing, I see what you're saying. He's opening with his front arm, and his back arm's kind of just following along for the ride. I see, we'll get to comps, and maybe it's the lefty release, but there's definitely traits of Tua. I think he's a taller, bigger, maybe more athletic version of Tua, where if you look at Tua's a great rhythm quarterback where he gets back and he hits Tyreek Hill on these deep in cuts, these deep balls. And I don't even know if Tua could probably throw it further than 55 yards. Penix clearly has a great touch on the deep ball, and you saw that all season long.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to make it difficult for teams, Brian, to separate the quarterback from the offense he's been in. It was the same offense that he was in at Indiana, same offense the last couple of years at Washington, where it's so vertically based.
Yeah.
And Tua, for example, is someone who can make some of those deep throws to some of those fast receivers he has, but he's almost like a point guard, right? It's like, get the ball out of your hand quickly and let your playmakers do some work. If you're that kind of offense at the NFL level, I'm not sure Michael Penix is going to be for you, because you just haven't seen him succeed all that much in the short to intermediate areas. So much of it is deep.
And his short to intermediate completion percentage was not outstanding. Here comes another Michael Penix throw. This one shows some of the accuracy, though, and the speed that he can put on it. If you decide you want to make him a short area thrower, zing! Woo!
And Tom, this Texas game, I mean, he was out of his mind good in this game. And he did some things in this game that he didn't really do all that consistently, and we'll see some other plays a little bit later here, but he moved around a little bit in the pocket, bought himself time. Right here, Brian, this is just his bread and butter. He's standing in there and he's letting it rip.
Yeah, I mean, Texas is giving him this throw. He does a great job of seeing that safety of the field, get with. He knows that the middle's open, and it does show some velocity on the throw. And to me, so much about playing quarterback is knowing where to go with the ball. And so you see initially he checks the safety to the right. He knows that he has a seam coming in the middle of the field, and it's going to be open. So it's anticipating and throwing it on a line to get it there in between those two safeties.
Why? Again, this is the difficult thing, I would imagine, Brian, when you're watching this as a professional quarterback. You're like, this is, God knows how many yards I would throw for at the age of 38 right now if I was in college, because your brain is bigger than theirs.
Well,
that seems like such an easy throw.
Like this to me is so ridiculous, because they pull the guard for the action, but the back doesn't even come for a fake. And here comes the linebacker who's clearly responsible for that area of the field, and all he does is follow the guard. He doesn't even look to see if the ball's handed off or not, which this is...
Okay, so he's... Okay, he should have dropped.
You can see what I'm seeing? Like,
yeah, 41 should have dropped.
Yeah, and so that takes that away. I mean...
41.
I just love to hear the disdain in Brian's voice when he sees something like this.
This guy's supposed to be another goalpost.
That's not stuff that's going to happen in the NFL, and that's not Michael Penix's fault. He sees it. The guy's out of place, which part of being a quarterback is knowing when the defense messes up.
That's great stuff. All right, take a look at this throw, Brian. Three-quarter arm angle. Issues with it or love it?
I don't mind it. I mean, he's getting rid of the ball a little quick, I would say. I don't know. Hard to see the down and distance here. If this is a first or second down play, I don't mind it at all. Get a completion, get yourself into third and manageable. The arm angle, I actually like to see people be able to manipulate their arm angles, because there's times where you're going to have to do it. So, if this is third down, I would say you probably got to hang in there and see what develops on the play. But first, second down, I think it's a good play.
And I don't hate the ball placement here, Brian. I don't know what you would say about it. If he leads him too much, he might lead him right into that corner who's just sitting there, right?
Yep, that's a great play by him, knowing that there's a cover two corner out there trapping, ready to hit an outbreaking route. So, like I said, if this is first or second down, this is a great play. And the arm angle, I think, actually, is a positive. It's been able to throw around. Bill always used to tell us, you can't throw it through him, and we'd sit there and be like, yeah, thanks. We realize we can't throw it through, DeForest Buckner's big arm right there. But it's true. You have to be able to find those windows and have to be able to throw around those arms. And so being able to drop it down and throw it three-quarter or sidearm sometimes is necessary.
Tom, this is a great example of what teams are trying to balance with Penix right now, which is this. He hasn't shown consistently that he's a great short area thrower. But a play like this one, a coach might look at and say, well, I can see it there. I don't care if he didn't do it 20 times a game like Bo Nix, who's throwing the ball sideways 75% of the time. I know he can do it, and therefore I'm willing to work with him. Same with the mobility. He tested like a freak at his pro day. He had a great 40, great vertical, but he doesn't run around. He doesn't scramble a lot, doesn't necessarily buy himself a ton of time behind the line of scrimmage. So he can do these things. It's just how consistently can he do it at the next level? If there's a team that really is willing to buy into that stuff, then they very well may take him in the top half of the first round, as you believe, Tom.
I'm going to bring up another old school lefty, Kenny Stabler, who actually didn't run like Penix, but boy, did he have some similarities with the throws. This is a play I didn't love. It's complete, but Phil, you mentioned when we were off air about one of the knocks on Penix and not taking sacks. He's kind of, you can't do this?
Well, listen, it's great not to take sacks, right? Sacks are drive killers. As much as you can avoid them, fantastic. I think there are people in the NFL, though, Brian, who believe, boy, he had so many injuries throughout his college career. He might be a little too willing at times to shy away from contact because he just wants to make sure he's able to stay on the field. Again, I get it as a guy who just sits here and watches football on a couch. But is that something that might bother him at the next level?
It's funny hearing your take because I love this play. I love this play because this guy is clearly supposed to be blocked. He thinks he has more time than he thinks. As a quarterback here, there's no one blitzing, right? They have the 5 down linemen. That should be taken care of clearly. If the linebacker blitz, I'm okay. I'm trying to get rid of it quick. He's dropping back. He's trying to hold the safety. This is the same throw we saw Drake Maye make earlier. It's a slot fade. He's trying to hold the safety. Now all of a sudden there's a little loop, a little stunt. There's a guy in your face. I mean, as long as you get the ball off and like this right here, taking a sack here would be a horrendous play.
Okay.
Him getting rid of the ball and completing this, giving his receiver, we talked about before, giving his receiver a chance to touch the ball, knowing that the guy's got his back to you, the DB's got his back to you. This is a tremendous play. Now, we're probably not going to show some of the plays where he's getting rid of the ball quickly that people might, criticize him. But this to me is he's so locked in, holding the safety. You see it right here. You can see the stripes on his helmet are to the right. Oh, here comes a guy free. I know my guy's one-on-one. I'm going to give him a chance to catch the ball. It's a tremendous play.
I agree with everything Brian said. And I just want to point out that Tom picked this play.
I did. And the reason I picked this play is after, I'm fortunate enough to cover the Patriots during Bill's tenure. And it was so drummed into me as a media member that the objective is to take care of the ball at all times.
Yep.
This seems like a low percentage, casual, what's the worst that can happen kind of throw. And that means, okay, worst that can happen is the other team's taking over at your 45 because it's haphazard.
Yeah, I think for me, the only guy who's a threat here is the guy who has his back to me.
Right,
He's covering the receiver you're throwing to.
And you're throwing it deep.
Because if let's just say he dropped back and stared his receiver down and the free safety went over there and picked the ball off, that's putting the ball in harm's way. He's actually protecting the ball more than he really has to by holding that safety. And now he already knows, based on the coverage, I can tell by the way he's throwing it, that it's man-to-man. This guy's pressed, so he's going to be in a trail technique. And all I have to do is put it out there because my receiver is looking for the ball and the DB's not.
All right, that's why Brian Hoyer's here, because it just turned into an ass throw to a sassy throw. Okay, let's go with high comp, low comp, Brian, from Michael Penix.
Yeah, I'll stick with, mentioned it before, the Tua comparison. I think he's probably a little bit bigger, a little bit more athletic, a little bit stronger arm version of Tua. That's probably the top you're looking at. When you look at lefty quarterbacks, you want to compare him to other lefties. It's hard to think about, a low comp. I know you, off air, you mentioned Tyler Palko, which is a blast from the past. Someone that I played against in college. It's hard because is he going to go to the right team? Is he going to go somewhere where he's got to throw balls through driving force winds? You play in Gillette in December, January. Are those deep balls, are they going to start to wobble? Are they going to stay a tight spiral? So those are all things you got to think about.
Not with the massive hands, Phil.
He does have massive hands, 10.5-inch hands, so biggest hands of anybody in this draft class among the guys we've been talking about. For my high-end comp, I struggle because it's hard to get that lefty thing out of your head. And when you were talking about sort of the open stance and just letting his arm go along for the ride, I kind of can picture Steve Young a little bit. But I'm going to go just in terms of play style. I'm thinking Arizona edition Carson Palmer. Just throw that thing down the field in a Bruce Arians offense. Let your guys go make plays. He's not going to be running a whole lot and picking up yards with his legs. He's going to be from the pocket, chucking that thing down the field. I'll go Carson Palmer. And then low end, Sam Bradford. Some injury issues. Yeah. There were some injury issues with Sam Bradford as well. Big arm, though.
I'm going to go high end, Phillip Rivers, without the same level of fire, but similar throwing angles. And, I would imagine their arms were similarly strong. Rivers could throw it when he needed to, and certainly Penix can too, but I wonder how many of these and how much of these throws he'll be able to get away with at the next level. All right, that's going to be a wrap. We did fantastic. You guys were terrific with the intel, and I was a grade A point guard, I think. So, all right, we hope you're a lot smarter about these 4 quarterbacks than you were when we started. Make sure you join us Thursday, wall-to-wall NFL draft coverage. Find out who the next quarterback of the New England Patriots is going to be.